Everyone, I hope you all are fine and safe at your home. Today we will discuss about menstrual cycle. In the previous lesson, I have taught you about oogenesis. During the process of oogenesis, ovum is produced, and the process of oogenesis is a discontinuous process. As I told you, nearly 2 millions of primary follicles, they are produced in the fetus condition, and from birth till the puberty time, nearly 50 to 80,000 primary follicles remain in the puberty condition. And during the menstrual cycle, you will observe through this diagram, every month one follicle is being selected and which is converted into the Graafian follicle, which produces ovum or egg. So let us see here what is menstrual cycle. The menstrual cycle is the reproductive cycle in female primates. The reproductive cycle in the female primates like monkeys, apes and human being, it is called menstrual cycle. Means the menstrual cycle occurs in the female primates, apes, monkeys and human beings. The menstrual cycle includes all the events which takes place in one menstrual cycle till the start to the next menstrual cycle. Means all the events in a cycle till the start of the next menstrual cycle, all these events comprise together and it forms a menstrual cycle. The whole process of the menstrual cycle is completed under the following headings. The first one is the menstrual phase. The second one is the follicular phase. Then follicular phase is also known as proliferative phase. The third one is the ovulatory phase, and which is followed by luteal phase. You have to observe that what changes occur in each step, what hormones are secreted in the ovary and what are their functions. But before I teach you all the topics in detail, the process of menstrual cycle starts in human female as well as the primates at the start of the puberty. And the first menstrual cycle in human female, it is called menarche, or you can say the onset of the menstrual cycle in human female, it is called menarche. It takes place nearly at the age of 12 to 13 years of the age in human female, and the menstrual cycle is completed, or you can say that gets stopped permanently at the age of 50 to 55. So the permanent cessation, or you can say the permanent stoppage of the menstrual cycle in human female, it is called menopause. After menopause, after 50 to 55 years of the age, the female bear the offspring. She can't produce the young ones. So, female is fertile from menarche up to the menopause. The range is 12 to 13 years of the age till 50 to 55 years of the age. It varies female to female, but hardly it goes 50 to 55 years of the age. But men, they are fertile throughout their lifetime. They can produce the sperms throughout their life, and they are fertile in such a way in their life cycle. The menstrual cycle, if the female is pregnant, the process of menstrual cycle also gets stopped, and the stoppage of the menstrual cycle in between the menarche and menopause is the indicative. It indicates that the female might be pregnant. But other factors are also there due to the lack of nutrients, due to any disorders. Sometimes the menstrual cycle is also stopped, but generally if the female is healthy, she is not having any problem and the menstrual cycle is going to be stopped, maybe that she might be pregnant. The whole process of the menstrual cycle, as I told you, the first one is the menstrual phase. This is the diagram given in your NCERT book also. And through this diagram, you can observe that how the process of menstrual cycle is completed. Actually, the whole process of menstrual cycle is completed within 28 days. The menstrual cycle lasts for 28 to 29 days, and after the completion of 28 to 29 days, again the cycle is going to be repeated. So it lasts for 28 to 29 days. And here in this diagram you can observe it is starting from first and going to be ended up to 28. And in this diagram you will observe that what changes occur in the uterus, what kinds of the hormones are secreted by the ovaries and pituitary gland, and what changes occur inside the ovary also. So the first one is the menstrual phase. The menstrual phase lasts for 3 to 5 days. You can see here 1, 3, 5, these are the days. Generally it lasts for 3 days, in some of the cases 4 days or 5 days. And what events occur in the menstrual phase? In menstrual phase, there is the sludge of the blood vessels. As you know, for the proper implantation, the female uterus, it becomes thick. The uterine wall, it becomes thick to take the embryo for the complete development of the fetus. And if the process of fertilization doesn't take place, then what happens? The endometrial lining, or you can say the uterus lining, they are ruptured and they sludged off through the vagina in the form of the blood. All the blood vessels, they ruptured and sludged off. They go outside through the vagina in the form of blood, and this is called menstrual phase. The first one, this is called menstrual phase, and it lasts for 3 to 5 days. The second one is the follicular phase or proliferative phase. You can say, suppose the menstrual phase lasts for up to 5 days, then from 6 up to 13, the second step is started, and this is called follicular phase. The follicular phase lasts for 9 to 10 days. During the process of follicular phase, so many hormones are secreted, and these hormones may be the pituitary hormones, maybe, and also the ovarian hormones, the hormones which are secreted by the ovary. The two pituitary hormones are secreted, and these two are FSH and LH. You can see in this diagram, in the follicular phase, these two hormones are secreted, FSH and LH. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, that is luteinizing hormone. And both the hormones FSH and LH, both are secreted by the anterior pituitary. These two hormones are also known as gonadotropins. So it's very, very important. Sometimes there may be the question that name the hormones which are secreted by the pituitary gland in the follicular phase or proliferative phase. These two hormones are FSH and LH. The FSH. Now, what is the function of FSH? The follicle stimulating hormone stimulates, or you can say select, a specific follicle, and that follicle is converted into the Graafian follicle, or you can say mature follicle. As I told you, inside the ovary, nearly 50 to 80,000 immature follicles are present at the puberty, but not all the follicles, they are converted into the Graafian follicle. They produce the ovum. Every month in each menstrual cycle, it's very, very important, only one follicle, it becomes mature, and that mature follicle is Graafian follicle, and that Graafian follicle produces egg, or you can say ovum. So out of so many follicles, the specific follicle which is selected by, which follicle will convert into the Graafian follicle? It is selected by FSH. So follicle stimulating hormone select the immature follicle which is converted into the Graafian follicle, or you can say the mature follicle. FSH hormone also stimulates the other follicular cells inside the ovary to produce estrogen hormone. The estrogen hormone is produced by the ovary from the follicular cells, and as you know, the estrogen hormone is responsible for thickening the wall of the uterus. You can see here the wall of uterus. This is the uterine events. The wall of uterus is gradually starts to become thick, and initially the thickness of the wall of the endometrium takes place in the presence of estrogen hormone. Why it is going to be thick? It helps in the process of implantation, and when the fetus will be there in the uterus, the wall must be thick, and therefore the wall can properly look after the young ones, or you can say the fetus. So estrogen hormone is responsible for thickening of the wall of uterus. One more hormone is secreted from the pituitary, that is called LH hormone. LH hormone is also secreted. It also stimulates the follicular cells to produce the estrogen. Both the hormones at the same time, both they are secreted, FSH and LH, in the follicular phase. But especially you can see here, the level of LH, it becomes too much. It's become very high on the 14th day of the start of the menstrual cycle, and this LH hormone is mainly responsible for ovulation process. It's very, very important. the level of LH is at their peak on the 14th day of the start of the menstrual cycle in the ovulatory phase, and it induces the mature Grecian follicle to release ovum, and that's why this is called LH surge. Means the level of LH is at the high peak, and this LH surge is found on the 14th day of the start of the menstrual cycle, and LH hormone induces the mature follicle, or you can say the Grecian follicle, to release ovum, or you can say it helps in the process of ovulation. So in the follicular phase, very important, these two hormones are secreted, FSH and LH. Both the hormones, they induce the follicle cell, which is converted into the Grecian follicle. Both the hormones, they also stimulate other follicular cells to produce estrogen hormone, and estrogen helps to thick the wall of uterus for the process of implantation. But especially the LH goes at the peak level on the 14th day, and this is the mid of the menstrual cycle, and in the mid of the menstrual cycle the process of ovulation takes place. Why follicular phase is also known as, I have written here, proliferative phase. As I told you, in the follicular phase, estrogen hormone is also secreted, and this estrogen hormone induces the wall of uterus for thickness. The wall of uterus, the endometrial wall, they proliferate, they become enlarged, they divide, and because of the proliferation, because of the enlargement, because of the rapid enlargement, thickening of the wall of uterus, this is also known as proliferative phase. Now the follicular phase or proliferative phase is followed by ovulatory phase about 14th day of the menstrual cycle. As I told you, menstrual cycle lasts for 28 days, and the mid of the menstrual cycle, that is the 14th day of the start of menstrual cycle, this is the ovulatory phase. During the process of ovulatory phase, the Grecian follicle, this is the Grecian mature follicle containing here this ovum or secondary oocyte, and this mature follicle is ruptured to release ovum. This is the ovum, and the process of ovulation takes place. Normally it takes place on the mid of menstrual cycle on the 14th day, but 1 or 2 days may vary, but generally it happens in the mid of menstrual cycle. If in the mid of the menstrual cycle, or if the ovum, definitely the ovum from the ovary, from the mature Grecian follicle, it comes where? Inside the fallopian tube. And if in the mid of the menstrual cycle, the female comes into the contact of the male, the process of fertilization may take place. And the female may be pregnant. So this is the time when there is more chance of the pregnancy, more chance of the fertilization. If the process of copulation, you can say, takes place in the mid of the menstrual cycle, then there is a chance of fertilization, there is the chance of pregnancy. Otherwise, in the follicular phase, either in the luteal phase, just chances of fertilization is not there. That's why it is said not all the copulation leads to the fertilization or leads to the pregnancy. If the copulation takes place in the safe period, in the early proliferative phase or late luteal phase, the chances of fertilization is not there. So only the fertilization is possible in the mid of the menstrual cycle when ovum is present inside the fallopian tube. So it's very, very important which hormone is responsible for ovulation, which hormone ruptures the Graafian follicle to release ovum, which hormone? LH hormone, because LH is at their peak. Now the ovulatory phase is followed by which phase? Luteal phase. Luteal phase is also known as secretory phase. Why it is said to be luteal phase? In the luteal phase, you will observe an endocrine tissue is formed inside the ovary, that is called corpus luteum. You can see here, in the ovulatory phase, ovum is released, and now the follicular cells of the Graafian follicle is ruptured, and the ruptured Graafian follicle cells, they are converted into a yellow mass of endocrine tissues, and this is called corpus luteum. Once the ovum is released, this ruptured Graafian follicle is converted into a yellow mass of endocrine tissues, and this is called corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum produces a female hormone that is called progesterone. And progesterone hormone further thickens the wall of uterus. You can see here that estrogen is thickening here the wall, but again the wall, it becomes more proliferative, more thickens in the presence of progesterone hormone. So in the luteal phase, estrogen as well as progesterone, these two hormones, both the hormones, they are involved in further thickening of the wall of uterus. So it becomes too much thick. The progesterone hormone maintains the pregnancy period, the whole pregnancy period, or you can say the gestation period, is looked after by the progesterone hormone. That's why it is also named pregnancy hormone. Why it is said to be the secretory phase? When the wall, it becomes very thick, the walls of the endometrium produce some of the uterine milk also, because of the so many uterine glands are also formed on the wall of the uterus, in the endometrial wall especially, and these uterine milk, they nourish the fetus, the young ones, the embryo, and because of the secretion of the uterine milk, this phase is also known as secretory phase. So in the luteal phase, the corpus luteum is formed. In the luteal phase, the corpus luteum, which is the endocrine tissues, produces progesterone hormone, and this progesterone hormone thickens the wall of uterus. So many uterine milks, the glands are also formed. These glands, they produce the uterine milk for the fetus. The luteal phase, if the process of, suppose in the mid of the menstrual cycle, if the process of fertilization doesn't take place, then what happens? The corpus luteum is further degenerated, and because of the degeneration, now the corpus luteum will not produce the progesterone hormone, and due to the lack of progesterone, further the wall which are produced, the walls again, they are ruptured, and the next cycle again gets start. Means the menstrual cycle or the next cycle, they get starts. And if the process of fertilization in the mid of the menstrual cycle takes place, then what happens? The corpus luteum is not degenerated. The corpus luteum is maintained by some of the hormones I will teach you later on. By a placenta, a specific hormone is secreted that is called HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, and that hormone maintains the corpus luteum to secrete progesterone hormone throughout the gestation period. And the walls, they do not rupture, they are not sledged off, and the next cycle doesn't take place. So, if the cycle gets started, means the fertilization doesn't take place in the mid of the menstrual cycle. So, these all are the events of the menstrual cycle. Once again, let me to summarize, let me to compile the topic which I taught today, that is menstrual cycle. That the menstrual cycle is the cycle which takes place in female primates like monkeys, apes and human beings. The menstrual cycle lasts for how many days? 28 to 29 days. The onset of the menstrual cycle in human female at the age of puberty, this is called menarche, and the permanent cessation of the menstrual cycle at the age of 50 to 55, that is called menopause. It means menstrual cycle starts in menarche and gets finally stopped in the menopause. The whole process of the menstrual cycle, which lasts for 28 to 29 days, is completed into the following steps. It has mainly 4 steps: menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase and secretory phase. The menstrual phase lasts for 3 to 5 days, in which the blood vessels or endometrial linings, they are ruptured, they are sledged off, and they come outside through the vagina in the form of the blood. It generally occurs for 3 to 5 days. The menstrual cycle is followed by follicular phase. In the follicular phase, 2 hormones are secreted by the pituitary gland. These 2 are FSH and LH. FSH especially select the immature follicle, which is converted into the Graafian follicle. The remaining follicular cells, in the presence of FSH, they produce estrogen hormone, which further thickens the wall of uterus. The amount of LH especially is at their peak in the mid of the menstrual cycle. It stimulates the Graafian follicle to release the ovum. It means it helps in the process of ovulation. After the ovulatory phase, then in the luteal phase, the ruptured Graafian follicle is converted into the yellow mass of endocrine tissues, which is called corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum produces progesterone hormone. Progesterone maintains the wall of uterus. And if the process of fertilization doesn't take place, then the corpus luteum, again, they are degenerated. Here I have written regressing corpus luteum, and due to the regression, or you can say due to the degeneration, the progesterone level, it becomes very low. There will be no synthesis of progesterone, and hence again the next cycle gets started. So that's all about the menstrual cycle. You have to learn all these 4 steps, and this diagram is also very, very important. In this diagram, the downward, I have shown the uterine events. You can see here, these all are the projections, the thickness of the wall. Initially, the thickness are very less, but gradually the walls are going to be thickened because later on the progesterone hormone is secreted. These 2 ovarian hormones in this diagram have been shown, estrogen and progesterone. The progesterone level initially it's very less, but in the secretory phase, in the luteal phase, definitely the progesterone level it becomes very high. Estrogen initially, before the luteal phase, the amount of estrogen is too much more, but in the luteal phase, their amount or their concentration becomes low. These are the events of the follicular cells present inside the ovary. You can see here, these are the developing follicles. The developing follicles, only one follicle is converted into the Graafian follicle. This is the process of ovulation takes place in the presence of LH hormone. This is LH. And the ruptured Graafian follicle is converted into the corpus luteum for the production of progesterone hormone. Progesterone. And if the process of fertilization doesn't take place, then the corpus luteum is further degenerated. Here these two hormones are there, FSH and LH. The LH and FSH both are secreted by the pituitary gland, but LH, it is at the peak. This is called LH surge in the mid of the menstrual cycle, 14th day, and later on their concentration becomes low. As far hormones are concerned, it's very, very important that all the hormones you have to learn that how many hormones are secreted from the pituitary. Pituitarian hormones, these two hormones, FSH and LH, and ovarian hormones are two, estrogen and progesterone. So that's all about the menstrual cycle. And tomorrow I will teach you the next topic, that is fertilization, then embryonic development, embryo formation, lactation. So very soon, I think within 1 or 2 classes, this chapter will be completed. Then I will start the next one also. So thanks to everyone.